Hi, Mike Napoleon here with SuperSpeed Golf. I'm joined with my friend Tyler Standifird from Utah Valley University. And today we're going to talk to you about what really counts in all of this speed training deal. And that's what happens to your performance out on the golf course when you go through a speed training program with SuperSpeed Golf.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, Mike, that I would call myself like a practical biomechanist. I don't like theory. Again, I like equations when they tell a story, but to me, this is the ultimate story in speed training, which is if I look at a golfer pre-speed training and post-speed training, what actually happens to their performance when they're physically on the golf course? I've wanted to do this study since day one, and I finally got to do it this summer.
Well, we've wanted to do this study for a long time too. It's not the easiest type of study to do, and I'll let Tyler talk about the details here in a second. But I can tell you that as a golf coach that owned a golf performance company and now a speed training company, I mean, this is the holy grail of everything we want to talk about, because it's great if you can swing faster at the driving range or swing faster with a super speed club, but until it's actually integrating into your game out on the golf course, helping you hit it further out there, having more fun, all of those pieces, I don't think that we've completed our job. So what we did with this study is we partnered with a great company called ShotScope. What ShotScope does, they make rangefinders, they make GPS, and they also make basically GPS tagging devices that allow us to track every single shot, every swing that a golfer makes out on the golf course, which every different club in their bag really gives us a full idea, just like we were looking at the PGA Tour stats, of exactly how that player is going about their round out on the golf course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this was a really cool device because they have to do very little, right? The golfers only have to install them on their clubs, which I showed them how to do. They have to get some baseline data when they're playing out on the golf course. And then when they're out on the golf course, they just click a button every hole that tells them they finished the hole, and then they're on to the next hole. So it's a really simple device to use. I was able to use this for a few months before I started the study, so I would know how it functioned. And then we got these golfers rolling in the study.
All right, well, let's talk about this study. How did you set it up? What did you do? What were the parameters? Let's hear it.
Yeah, Mike mentioned this, and I learned really early on why this was a study that very few people undertake, because it's incredibly time-consuming, it's tedious, there's a lot of details, because I have to work with the same group of golfers, and I have to start thinking about all of the different confounding variables or variables that might influence score and try and control as much as I possibly can so that we can present as accurate a data as we can. So what I did is I recruited a group of 11 golfers. I made sure they were a group of golfers who had been playing a significant amount of golf. I got them after they'd been kind of playing. I didn't get them at the start of the season. I wanted to make sure they had a few months to kind of come out of the off season, work out those winter bugs. And these were golfers who played pretty much the exact same golf course once or twice a week, almost throughout the entire summer. So what I did is I brought them in. I had to get a baseline swing speed, and I used the PRGR radar for this out on the driving range, went to the golf course that they played, and then I taught them how to use the ShotScope device, and I sent them on their way for 1 month so that they could register as many rounds of golf as they could possibly get. My hope was that because they were playing, 1 to 2 times a week, that I was going to get, maybe 4 to 6 rounds of golf as a pre-data set for that month. Once they did that, then I brought them back in, I gave them the super speed clubs, taught them the protocols, and sent them on their way for 6 weeks of super speed training. And then once they came in, I brought them back in, assessed how much gains they had had on their club head speed, and then had them start logging their rounds again for another month to see what happened to their on-course data.
Yeah, so what's really cool is we got data before they had done speed training, right after they did the speed training, before they were back out on the course, and then we got that same set of data out on the golf course, tracking what happened to their game in the actual performance on the course. Well, I guess we ought to just tell people what happened. Well, most people, aren't going to be shocked that we saw that, same about 5% gain in club speed, distance, all that. But the actual distance number was 4.9%, correct?
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand, the way I pulled this out. So, we're in Utah, we have high elevations, which is great for distance. So when we look at this 5%, this actually equated to about 15 to 20 yards of distance for these golfers. So.
Okay, very good. So now the one that people are usually not quite as, don't really understand as much when we show them the first time is what happens to accuracy. I mean, you would think I'm hitting it further, I might have more dispersion, I'm swinging with the club faster, obviously I'm not going to hit it straighter, but we found the exact opposite, right?
Yeah, this was really cool to see. I think this was a data point we were excited about, what happens to accuracy, and what we've hypothesized a lot for a lot of years is that as golfers start to learn how to utilize the ground better, their kinematic sequencing improves, all these things that go hand in hand with speed, we actually expected, hey, I bet out on the course they're actually going to hit at least as number of fairways, and if they miss maybe one extra, that's not going to be so detrimental because they're going to be hitting the ball 15, 20 yards further.
But what we're actually seeing is they're actually hitting it 10% straighter than they did before. Now, as a coach, I'll keep this really simple. When you work more athletically in your swing becomes more powerful, it becomes faster, it becomes more repeatable, more consistent. All of the things get better. Athleticism and golf are paired hand in hand, and this is just a study that is showing you that with some real hard evidence proof. But this is something that we've known for a long time. Now we know it for sure. But I think that's really cool. Now, if you're going to hit the ball further off the tee, so we're hitting it longer, we're hitting it straighter, what do you think is going to happen to score? What happened to score for these players?
So this has to be an obvious thing where, wow, their scores actually went down. So what I actually did is I started to dive into the data and a lot of different details. And we wanted to look at score overall, but we also wanted to start to understand based on drivers and where they hit drivers and if they hit the fairway or not, what happened to their scores. And we saw that these golfers on average improved by about 3 strokes as a result of this study. Now, that seems like a huge gain, right? And it is a huge gain, but I think there's a lot of really good data out there on the strokes gain stuff and what we see in pro players. This really lines up. You hit the ball 15 yards further, you have more accuracy, you're going to score better.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Everything becomes easier when you've got shorter clubs into the green from better lies on average than you had before. I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? You're going to have more chances to make birdie. You're going to have less times where you're going to, bogey avoidance is going to get better. All of these stats are going to improve. Really cool stuff here, Tyler. I think this is one of my favorite studies we've ever done. Thanks for all the hard work dealing with this, because I know trying to get golfers to track all these rounds and everything is very difficult. Before we leave, these were the average. These were the averages of this entire study. There were a couple golfers in this group, one in particular, that did even way better than this, right?
I mean, and I should state, like, this was an athletic, good group of golfers, right? I mean, when these guys came to me on the range, I was like, man, these are like big, strong dudes, right? And they benefited from speed training. There were some golfers that maybe didn't quite look that part, and they benefited from speed training. But my favorite one was what I almost consider like the typical golfer who stands to benefit so much from speed training. So this was a 48-year-old golfer, desk job. He was about a 10 to 12 handicap, never had broken 80. So his goal was to break 80. Okay, he was a dad, he had 2 boys he played golf with. And when I introduced it to him, he went all out on it, right? He never missed a day speed training. He tracked his rounds, so well each time, played the same course every single time. And when I looked at his data, he picked up about 7 miles per hour of club head speed. When he went out on the golf course, he was hitting the ball 30 yards further on the golf course. He had 5% more increase in accuracy. The coolest thing is prior to the study, almost 15% of his drives ended up in the penalty area. Post-training, he was actually able to only have about 2 to 3% of his drives end up in the penalty area.
I mean, that's a huge result. I mean, it's very cool to see that, high end of the study. But, the fact that we have these great averages as well just really shows, speed training is going to be a very positive influence on your game out on the golf course where it counts, affecting the things that really matter, affecting distance, affecting accuracy, and affecting your actual scoring average out on the course. We hope you enjoyed this study. Stay tuned for a whole bunch more research that we'll be presenting in the future. Get out there, increase your speed, lower your scores, and hit it straighter.